Please welcome Congressman Jim Bridenstine from Oklahoma.
August of 2011, if they couldn't come to an agreement on how to cut $1.2 trillion over 10 years, it would trigger what was called the sequester. The sequester was, at the time, it was a $600 billion cut to the Department of Defense over 10 years, and that was on top of the $480 billion that had already been cut in August of 2011. As a Navy pilot who was flying counter-drug missions in Central and South America, this is what really, it bothered me. And I'll tell you why it bothered me, because my Navy squadron was responsible for busting about $2 billion worth of cocaine every year on the high seas, and my squadron was one of the squadrons being cut. In other words, billions of dollars worth of cocaine, once this went into effect, would be coming into the United States of America unchecked, and this is a direct result of failure of leadership in the United States Congress and from the President of the United States. The squadron has been cut, and it's not just my squadron that was cut. We have cut pretty much the capabilities. We've gutted the capabilities of counter-drug missions in Central and South America to the extent where now we have more cocaine coming into our country than ever before. And the problem is it doesn't save money. This puts more pressure on local and state law enforcement who have to bust the cocaine in ounces in people's pockets rather than in tons on the high seas. So it costs a lot more money for local and state governments, and it's less effective. And this was obviously a big problem for me. Ultimately, I chose to run for Congress. The member that I was running against was an incumbent Republican. I held him to task on this and many other issues. Debt ceiling increases without a solution to control spending, continuing resolutions, tax code manipulation, stimulus packages, government takeovers, a whole host of issues, earmarks. So that's really how I got into this race. Since I've been here, I've noticed a lot of things, and there's been a lot of challenges. And I can say that I have not been shy about my criticism of the President of the United States. I'll just give you some examples. We have a world right now that is more dangerous than it has ever been. And if you look at Russia is a very, very aggressive country. They are trying to reconstitute a union, not called the Soviet Union. They're calling it the Eurasian Union or the Customs Union. Every couple of months, they come up with another union that they want to create. They currently occupy large portions of Georgia, which they invaded in 2008. They're moving the borders in Georgia. They currently have thousands of troops in Armenia. They are very aggressive with Azerbaijan, who has pushed out a Russian radar that has been there for 30 years. And when they did that, they immediately cut the energy contracts to Azerbaijan. Oh, by the way, in the dead of winter, they cut energy. They are the sole provider of energy to many Eastern European countries that were members of the former Soviet Union. In the dead of winter, if you disagree with Russia on a policy matter, guess what? They will cut your energy in the dead of winter and people die. And if you want to and as we're talking about this, they are right now investing $750 billion in military modernization. Interestingly, a lot of that is their nuclear capability. And if you're a former Soviet satellite state, an Eastern European country, and you want to have a missile defense shield, and the United States would like to help you with that, Russia immediately threatens nuclear war against your country. This is a very aggressive country. So here's where we are. And oh, by the way, they're very involved in supporting Iran as far as the elimination of not the elimination, but they don't adhere to the sanctions on Iran. They're arming the Assad regime in Syria. It seems like wherever it is that we want peace and freedom and stability, where we want a democratic form of government to take hold, they're there to thwart that. And so, interestingly, here's how the president responds. The president goes to the eastern side of Berlin, and he gives a speech, and he says that we're going to unilaterally take down 30% of our strategic nuclear deterrent. That's how he responds. So what does Russia do? They get even more aggressive in Syria. Look, weakness is provocative. And that's what we're seeing right now from this president. People look at Egypt and they say, what's going on in Egypt? Well, the president is completely disengaged. And why is Egypt so important? People say, well, you know, Egypt, why don't we just cut off the $1.3 billion of aid that we give them every year? And believe me, I feel that same frustration. But why do we give Egypt $1.3 billion? 1978, there was the Camp David Accords. And we had, for the first time, we provided aid to Egypt. We provided aid to Israel. It was part of this peace process between Egypt and Israel. And it has now for 35 years secured peace between Egypt and Israel, this foreign aid. And oh, by the way, when we give them foreign aid, they use that foreign aid to buy American weapons. And that, in essence, secures them as an American ally. And in 1978, you can imagine, we wanted Egypt as an American ally because of the former Soviet Union. And they would have loved to have controlled the Suez Canal. We weren't going to give them that opportunity. A lot of energy flows through the Suez Canal, and it's critically important that we keep the Suez Canal open, not because we want to control it. Look, and I hear this argument a lot as a military guy, that we go to war for oil. That's not what we do. We go to war to defend free markets, to keep shipping lanes open, to keep the Persian Gulf open, to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. We don't go to war for oil. We go to war for free markets. That's what we do. The president, over and over again, demonstrates weakness around the world. Weakness is provocative, and that's how come we have so much really troubling spots right now in the world. Thanks.